Cassandra saw things. Not futures, not exactly. Flashes, glimpses, impressions of lives smeared with truth and terror. Sometimes useful, often not. Her gift, a curse in disguise, a weight on her soul. She ran a small tea shop in the French Quarter, a facade, a place to blend in. Tourists came for the charm, whispered about her abilities. Readings were by appointment only, discreet. Cassandra preferred it that way. New Orleans thrummed with hidden currents, whispers of magic. It drew those who sought to exploit, to deceive. Forgers, con artists, peddlers of illusion. They crossed her path more often than she liked. They were a motley crew, the forgers, drawn together by greed, by desperation, each with a talent for mimicry, for weaving falsehoods. They forged documents, paintings, identities, anything for the right price. There was the old man, his hands shaking, eyes sharp as shards of glass. He could duplicate any signature, any brushstroke. A lifetime spent perfecting his craft, his soul slowly turning to ash. The young woman, pale and gaunt, a flicker of panic always in her eyes. She could forge emotions, slip into roles like a chameleon shedding its skin. But her own fear, she could never quite mask. And the man with the serpent smile, his eyes cold and calculating. He was the mastermind, the puppet master, pulling the strings, orchestrating their elaborate deceptions. He was the one who haunted Cassandra's dreams. They came in the dead of night, clawing their way out of her subconscious. The forgers, twisted and grotesque, transformed into something monstrous. Ghouls, their skin pallid and stretched thin, their eyes gleaming with a hungry light. The old man's hands, gnarled and skeletal, scratched at her window, desperate to get in. The young woman's face, contorted in a silent scream, floated outside her window, pleading for help she couldn't give. And the man with the serpent's smile, he was always there, lurking in the shadows. His eyes, like two burning coals, followed her every move, a predator stalking its prey. Their hunger, it was insatiable. Not for food, not in the traditional sense. They craved secrets, identities, lives to consume and discard. They feasted on the discarded scraps of other people's lives, leaving only emptiness behind. In her dreams, Cassandra saw them scavenging through garbage, their faces smeared with filth, greedily devouring discarded receipts, old photographs, anything that held a trace of someone else's existence. And then, there were the toilets. Those gleaming porcelain portals to some netherworld. In her nightmares, they were obsessed with them, trying to squeeze their grotesque forms through the narrow openings, emerging, dripping and reeking into the world. The man with the serpent's smile, he was the worst. In her dreams he would emerge from the toilet in her own bathroom, a genie of filth and forgery. Water streaming down his face, he'd offer her wishes, his voice a guttural rasp. 3 wishes, Cassandra, he'd gurgle. Anything your heart desires, wealth, power, love. All I ask for in return is a trifle, a mere sliver of your soul. She'd back away, heart pounding, the stench of sewage filling the room. But his offer, tempting as it was, couldn't mask the horror of his true form. Cassandra tried to scream, but no sound came out. She wanted to run, but her legs were frozen in place. The genie's smile widened, his teeth sharp and pointed as he reached for her with dripping hands. Suddenly, the toilet gurgled again. This time, it was the old man who emerged. His eyes wide with terror, he scrabbled at the rim of the bowl, his skeletal fingers slipping on the porcelain. "He's coming!" the old man croaked, his voice hoarse with fear. "He's coming for us all!" Then, with a sickening slurp, he was dragged back down, disappearing beneath the murky water. The dreams bled into her waking hours, faces swimming in her teacup, voices whispering from the gutters. She started seeing the forgers everywhere, their features shifting, their identities fluid and uncertain. Was the cashier at the grocery store the young woman in disguise? Was the man reading the newspaper in the park the serpent-smiling genie? Reality felt thin, like a veil that could be ripped apart at any moment. Cassandra retreated further into herself, her world shrinking to the confines of her shop. The scent of tea, the familiar weight of the old teacups in her hands, these were her anchors. These were the things that kept her tethered to sanity. One day, the dreams stopped. The forgers, the ghouls, the terrifying genie, they vanished from her nightmares as quickly as they had arrived. Left behind was a profound sense of relief, a quiet joy at the return of normalcy. She knew they were still out there, lurking in the shadows of the city, But for now, they were content to leave her be. Perhaps they had found new prey, new lives to consume. Or perhaps they sensed her fear, her growing awareness of their true nature, and decided she was more trouble than she was worth. Whatever the reason, Cassandra was grateful for the reprieve. She tended to her shop, her hands moving with a newfound lightness, her heart no longer heavy with dread. She had looked into the abyss, had seen the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of the world, and had emerged, shaken but unbroken. The world outside her shop was still flawed, still filled with deception and despair. But for Cassandra, it had taken on a new kind of beauty. The ordinary, the mundane, the simple act of brewing a cup of tea, these things held a newfound sweetness. She was content to live in the in-between, straddling the line between the real and the unreal, the mundane and the magical. She was a seer, yes, but she was also a survivor. And she would continue to navigate the treacherous currents of her life, one cup of tea at a time.